What the FBI does is not just locate and find suspects, but we also participate in eliminating subjects. And what we had at the time was a subject in custody in relation to this investigation. So in my commitment to work with the public to help identify subjects and suspects, I put that information out. I don't see it as a mistake.
That is the director of the FBI, under oath, telling a United States senator that telling the country the wrong thing was not a mistake. The question is not whether he said it. The record already answers that. The question is how long he can keep saying it wasn't wrong. This is the Senate Judiciary Committee. On one side, Senator Peter Welch of Vermont, calm, methodical, working from a stack of dates and flight logs. On the other side, Kash Patel, the man running the FBI, sitting behind a nameplate and a story he is about to be asked to defend 4 separate times in 11 minutes. Welch does not raise his voice. He does not need to. What you are about to hear is not one bad answer. It is a pattern. A pattern that starts with 3 words the whole country remembers and ends with a number the FBI director cannot explain. Stay with the ending. It is the part he never sees coming. 4 different topics, 4 different chances to just answer the question. Watch how many times he takes it.
Director Patel, at one point you made an announcement that the suspect was in custody. We got our man. It turned out that was not true. In fact, I think that was about 27 hours before the person now in custody was apprehended. Why did you make that statement?
3 words. We got our man. Said to a country still reeling from the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Said by the man in charge of finding the killer. And according to Welch's own timeline, said 27 hours before the actual suspect was in custody. So who did the FBI actually have 27 hours before the truth caught up with them?
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate you letting me address this. What the FBI does is not just locate and find suspects, but we also participate in eliminating subjects. And what we had at the time was a subject in custody in relation to this investigation. So in my commitment to work with the public to help identify subjects and suspects, I put that information out. And then when we interviewed him, I put out the results of that. And could I have been more careful in my verbiage and included an A subject instead of subject? Sure, in the heat of the moment, but I was doing the best I could.
Listen to what just happened. He didn't say the statement was accurate. He said his wording could have been more careful. That is not a defense of the claim. That is an admission that the words he chose were wrong, dressed up as a grammar note.
In all candor, I don't quite get that, because if we have our man, that would suggest to the public that everybody can rest and relax and not then continue to provide information to local law enforcement and to you.
Well,
so that was a mistake.
I don't see it as a mistake. I see it as something working with the public to identify that there was a subject.
So
a sitting senator just explained in plain English why telling the public we got our man when you didn't have him is dangerous. Not embarrassing, dangerous. It tells a frightened country to stand down while the real threat is still out there. And the director's response was to reword the sentence, not to answer for it.
If you put out a statement that says we've got our man, and in fact it turns out that you didn't have your man, that's not a mistake?
But that's not what I said.
That's not what I said. On camera, on the record, after Welch just read the statement back to him, almost word for word. This is the moment the first defense breaks. Not with a shout, with a sentence that doesn't hold up to a second reading. Welch let it sit there. Then he moved to a name most of the country had never heard before this hearing, a name that was about to make the first collapse look small.
A second thing that is really important in the FBI, but it's important in every agency, is that the folks who are doing good work get supported for the work they're doing. And a number of highly successful FBI agents have been let go. And I want to just ask you a little bit about that. You know who Brian Driscoll is, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And my understanding is he served at the FBI for over 18 years. You agree?
I believe that's accurate.
Special agent in charge of the Newark office. He was commander of the FBI's hostage rescue team. That's a very prestigious and responsible position. correct?
It is.
Section chief of the Critical Incident Response Group's tactical section. You've got to be pretty good to get that high responsibility. You agree with that?
Watch the shape of this. Welch isn't accusing anyone yet. He's building a resume, one confirmed fact at a time. And Patel is confirming every single line of it himself. 18 years, hostage rescue commander, tactical section chief. This is not a junior employee. This is one of the most decorated operators in the entire Bureau, which makes the next sentence land harder.
Yes, sir.
He oversaw 55 SWAT teams, and they're like the elite of the elite, right? They go in to the dangerous situations, right? He got a Medal of Valor for his participation in a raid on ISIS terrorist Abu Sayyaf, who had kidnapped American citizens Kyla Mueller, right? Mueller? Is that right?
I know.
You're in agreement, right?
I know Kayla Mueller's family. Yes, I know this.
A Medal of Valor, a hostage rescue named after an American citizen the whole country grieved for. 55 SWAT teams under his command. The director isn't disputing a word of this record. He's agreeing with all of it. So what could a man with this file possibly have done to lose his job?
And he got into trouble when Emil Bove demanded a list of FBI agents who investigated January 6th and was apprehensive that what did happen ultimately would happen, and that is those folks would get fired. I mean, do you agree with me that a boss who stands up for his subordinates when they did the job that was asked of them is a stand-up person and somebody to be admired?
Generally speaking, yes, sir.
Pardon me?
Generally speaking, yes, sir.
Say that back to yourself. The director just agreed, twice, that a boss who protects agents doing their assigned job deserves admiration. And the man he is describing, the one who did exactly that, is the man he personally fired.
But Driscoll got fired, right?
Again, that matter is under litigation, and the matter you referenced occurred before I was
Okay, but
director.
let's just keep it really narrow here. He's fired, right?
Yes, he was terminated.
And he has to be, there's somebody communicates to him that he's terminated, correct?
That's my job.
That's your job. So you communicated to him that he was fired.
I did.
However the decision was made, one fact is no longer in dispute. Kash Patel is the man who delivered the news. He confirmed it himself, in his own words, on the record.
So, you know, I have a hard time with this because that record suggests to me that this person is like worthy of consideration for the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and he got fired.
But there's also a record of other information that was available, and now that this matter is pending litigation, we will get that out in due course. But
In due course. Not today, not to this committee, not with a single document on the table, just a promise that somewhere, at some point, there is a reason. The country hears a resume that reads like a hero's file, and a director who says the real answer is coming later. And it doesn't stop there. Welch had 2 more receipts left, and neither one was about Brian Driscoll. Here's the question worth holding on to through the next few minutes. If the director can't fully explain why a decorated agent lost his job, can he explain how he's been spending the Bureau's money?
You said you wanted to ground Chris Wray's private jet travel that he pays for with taxpayer dollars to hop around the country. Let me ask you this. You know, on the weekend of, according to flight tracker data, on the weekend of March 7th, an FBI plane flew round trip from D.C. to Las Vegas, and you attended a UFC fight with Mel Gibson, and I'll show you that. Is that you, and is that true?
yeah, you want to know the difference? I live in Las Vegas. I'm allowed to go home. I didn't leave a congressional hearing early on an FBI jet to dodge questions.
All right.
In due course. Not today, not to this committee, not with a single document on the table, just a promise that somewhere, at some point, there is a reason. The country hears a resume that reads like a hero's file, and a director who says the real answer is coming later. And it doesn't stop there. Welch had 2 more receipts left, and neither one was about Brian Driscoll. Here's the question worth holding on to through the next few minutes. If the director can't fully explain why a decorated agent lost his job, can he explain how he's been spending the Bureau's money?
By the way, everyday FBI agents who are assigned in Washington don't get to fly home on a private jet.
Well, this is a great point. Do you know why I have to use a private jet? Because Congress made it mandatory.
Okay. In April 5th, well, we didn't make it mandatory that you go to UFC games with Mel Gibson.
Are you telling me I can't go home?
You got to use some judgment here.
So when I'm at home, I
would-
can't do what I'm doing when I go home.
Congress made it mandatory, he says, but Congress never mandated Las Vegas ringside seats or a hockey game with Wayne Gretzky. The rule and the ride are two different things, and the director just tried to make them sound like one.
Everybody else is allowed to go home,
Let
just
me
not
keep
me.
going. No, I'm glad you go home. I
Okay.
love to go home, but I don't go home on a private jet. On April 5th,
They're not
you
mandated to do so.
You attended a hockey game in New York City with Wayne Gretzky, and Flight Tracker says the FBI jet took you to and from New York City, where you don't live, right?
That's correct.
And on April 12th, on the following weekend, you attended a UFC fight in Miami, also on the FBI jet, right?
That's correct.
3 confirmed trips: Las Vegas, New York, Miami. None of them home. All 3 on a federal aircraft. And every single one confirmed by the director himself in his own voice without a single objection.
So what's the cost to the taxpayer for those 3 flights?
But I pay the commercial equivalent per the regs and the law. And so just so you know, when you are comparing me
I
to
just
prior
asked
directors.
I asked what the cost was, and you don't know. I take it.
Yeah.
One direct question: what did it cost? And the answer that came back wasn't a number. It was a comparison to someone else's spending. The record now shows the director of the FBI cannot tell Congress what his own travel costs the American taxpayer.
And what I've done with the use of the private jet is use Andrews Air Force Base versus
Okay.
Reagan National as what the other directors have done
Bottom line
to
here,
save the taxpayer
Bottom
dollars.
line here, you flew home to Las Vegas. There's nobody else in the FBI who gets paid. They have to pay their own way if they want to go home, right? I mean, right?
Well, that's not accurate. Depending on where you're stationed, the FBI covers the bill to get home.
An airport change gets offered as the savings, not a dollar figure, not a receipt, just a different runway, presented as proof of restraint. And when Welch points out that no rank-and-file agent gets a free ride home, the director's answer is that actually, sometimes they do too. Every explanation adds a new claim. None of them adds a number. Remember where this started: a false statement about a killer being caught. Now a fired hero agent with no public reason. Now a private jet with no known price tag. 3 different topics, the exact same shape every time. Confirm the fact, dodge the number, promise an answer later.
So are you telling me that FBI agents who are assigned in Washington, but who may live in Charlotte, they get paid by the FBI to go
Sometimes
home?
they do, yes.
Right. Another thing I want to say is this. Our local law enforcement has been stiffed. About $500 million in cop grants have been taken out of the budget. Those really help us in Burlington. They help us in Rutland. They really are important. And why in the world would we be cutting those cop grants when we need that local law enforcement, in part to partner with you?
Well, I
Do
think
you
you're
support that?
I think you're speaking to the Department of Justice grants, which I don't adjudicate, but also Vermont, just like every other state, has received a plus-up of FBI personnel.
Well,
$500 million gone from the towns Welch represents. And the answer is that it isn't technically his department. It's a different pattern with the same ending. Somebody else's job, somebody else's decision, somebody else's number. Then Welch asked about one more aircraft, and this time the number wasn't small.
tell you, that's not what we're seeing. The other thing, my understanding is that there's a requisition or an effort to get another plane for the FBI that would cost about $72 million. Is that right?
That's inaccurate. The FBI, because the jet, as you call it, is not my jet. We use it for operational needs. We use it for FTOX. We use it for HRT.
But that's the one you fly in, right?
We have multiple fixed wing assets, and one of them is on a wildly expensive lease that I deemed a waste of money, and I'm looking for a replacement in which the government can procure assets permanently.
$72 million. Called inaccurate, but not with a lower number, just with the word inaccurate, and a promise that the real figure is coming.
Well, I would welcome you submitting to this committee the cost information about the jets that are under consideration. And according to our research, the specifications that are included in this request would result in an expenditure of between $72 million and $80 million.
That's inaccurate, but I'll happily get you the right
I
numbers.
welcome getting the specific information.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
So here is what an 11-minute exchange actually delivered. A false statement about a killer's capture, defended as a wording issue. A decorated agent's firing, defended as a story for later. 3 confirmed flights on a federal jet, with a cost nobody in the room could name, and a $72 to $80 million aircraft called wrong by a man who couldn't say what right looks like. Not one of these was ever actually answered. Each one was managed, reworded, and pushed down the road. That is the story this hearing set out to defend, and piece by piece, under his own testimony, it came apart. No outside witness had to contradict him. No leaked memo had to surface. He did it himself, one polite non-answer at a time, in front of a camera that never stopped rolling. That is what makes this different from a viral gotcha clip. Nobody needed to trap him. He walked the story back on his own, sentence by sentence, until there was nothing left of it to defend. He yielded back his time. The numbers he asked for are still pending. What isn't pending is the tape. It's on the permanent record now, in the director's own words, for anyone to replay. What would you have asked him next?